Ignorance and indifference. Those are the key findings in a damning Auditor General report that raises serious questions about City of Toronto management that potentially put lives at risk. Good evening. I'm Cynthia Mulligan at Toronto City Hall. This Auditor General report is a scathing indictment of how Toronto City Hall management treated ongoing concerns about a vendor that was hired to do multiple fire code inspections at many City of Toronto buildings, including City Hall, Union Station, and even a daycare. And despite that these ongoing concerns went on for years, the city continued to give the vendor hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of contracts. We start with our City News team investigation now with the report and the man at the center of a fraud investigation. The investigation that prompted this report began after a whistleblower filed a complaint to the city's fraud and waste hotline a year ago. But concerns had been simmering for years. A key question, were the fire code inspections even done? Auditor General Beverly Romeo Beeler's investigation found inspection reports were frequently not available. City staff raised concerns to managers that work performed by York Fire Protection and Advanced Fire Control, companies both owned by Raf Ahmed, was subpar or not completed, and yet invoices were still paid. And worse, despite concerns, the city continued to award close to $1 million in contracts to Raf Ahmed between 2010 and 2017. But it goes beyond that. The auditor's report raises concerns the vendor was allegedly operating with false identities and forged the signatures of its own inspectors. In fact, a handwriting expert was brought in and concluded signatures from different names were written by one and the same hand. The Auditor General also found the signing officer for one of the companies was fake. In another instance, a David Daniels was listed on the company website as a senior fire engineer. The AG found he doesn't exist. City staff had been raising suspicions about non-existent staff for years. And yet, the report concludes, despite mounting evidence against this vendor, facilities management dismissed staff concerns and said there was a need to trust the vendor. Now, the Auditor General tested 19 city buildings that were supposed to have been inspected by the vendor and were cleared by the vendor, and found the majority were not compliant with the fire code. Now, this raises many questions about the management at City Hall and whether this is a systemic problem or just confined to one department. Mayor John Tory was not available for comment today, but in a letter to Deputy Mayor Stephen Holyday, he wrote, "The report chronicles an absolute failure to conduct proper due diligence when hiring life safety inspection vendors for city building." Here's what Stephen Holyday had to say about this.
People who use the same building were equally outraged, and we want to see these problems corrected immediately. We expect our management within the city to deal with the staff and the employees that may have fallen short of our expectations. We expect them to deal with this swiftly and efficiently, correct all of the issues, and ensure that this behavior stops.
We continue our City News team investigation now with just how many buildings this vendor was supposed to be inspecting. Here's Tina Yazdani.
Yes, it wasn't just City Hall. The auditor's report says fire code deficiencies were found at critical infrastructure buildings, including Old City Hall, Metro Hall, Exhibition Place, Castle Loma, the Toronto Zoo, and a city-run daycare. And right here at Union Station, where 250,000 people pass through every day. Toronto's Auditor General says the company went by various names, and the man behind it worked under various false identities. One by one, we went to the addresses linked to the company sometimes known as York Fire Protection, the company at the center of a widespread and damning fraud investigation. Some were residential buildings, others commercial. But in every case, we found the offices either abandoned or the people answering had never heard of a Raf Ahmed. Is there a Ralph who lives here? No. Do you know a Ralph? No. Have you ever heard of a Ralph? Okay. The man allegedly responsible for the years of suspected deception. The AG report says he went by many names: David Williams, Jason Peters, and Dave Daniels. In an interview with investigators, Ahmed claimed he used these names because he faced discrimination when he used his own. The report also states that he had several different companies, all tasked with inspecting, testing, maintaining, and repairing fire alarms and sprinklers, among other critical life safety systems. The AG's office spoke with more than one former employee who said Ahmed would just start a new company whenever he ran into difficulties with customers. According to documents, Ahmed started the first company in 2002 and has since picked up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of contracts, including with the City of Toronto. City staff raised red flags about advanced fire control, noting their work was subpar and in some cases unacceptable. They also wondered if some of the staff working at the company even existed. And the AG says they didn't, like David Williams, for example. Online, he was listed as a senior fire engineer, but after intense questioning, Ahmed admitted David Williams didn't exist and that this was a stock photo that is also used on several other websites. Ahmed also told investigators that at least 5 other identities associated with York Fire Protection or Advanced Fire Protection were fake. He's also accused of forging documents and signatures. Charges have been laid against York Fire and affiliated companies for failure to test and repair fire alarm systems. City News made several attempts to contact Rauf Ahmed. We did manage to speak with someone who claimed to be his employee. He said he never actually met Ahmed in person, but corresponded with him via email. He was hired last week after responding to a Kijiji ad, and he says that he never met Ahmed in person and that they only spoke via email.